Keanu Reeves thought it was just another night until he followed a girl home and uncovered the truth. Keanu Reeves was on his way to a film set late at night, cruising down an empty road outside the city. It was just another quiet evening until his car suddenly lost power, forcing him to pull over. With no obvious signs of mechanical failure and his phone battery critically low, Keanu spotted a glowing Walmart sign in the distance, his only hope for a quick solution. As he stepped inside the nearly deserted store, something unusual caught his eye: a young girl, alone, pushing a shopping cart filled with only one thing: diapers. No parents. No guardian. Just her, quietly moving through the aisles. Something about the sight didn't sit right with him. Who was she buying diapers for? Why was she out this late, all by herself? Feeling an unease he couldn't shake, Keanu decided to keep an eye on her. He watched as she made her purchase and left the store, walking into the cold, empty night. That's when Keanu made a decision that would change everything. He followed her home, just to make sure she got there safely. But what he discovered that night was something he never expected. A heartbreaking truth that would leave him shaken. What was this young girl hiding? And why was she all alone? Watch until the end to find out. You won't want to miss this one. Keanu Reeves thought he was just grabbing a charger until he saw a little girl alone in Walmart. It was late. The Walmart was nearly empty, its fluorescent lights flickering faintly as Keanu Reeves stepped inside, his footsteps echoing against the cold tile floor. His only goal? Find a charger before his phone completely died. But just as he made his way past the dimly lit aisles, something stopped him in his tracks. A little girl. Standing all alone in the personal care section, no older than 4 or 5. She wore nothing but a white tank top and underwear, her small frame hunched as if trying to make herself invisible. Keanu's heart clenched at the sight. Where were her parents? Why was she here, alone, in the middle of the night? His eyes scanned the store. Empty aisles. No guardians in sight. The only employee he'd seen was a cashier named Maria, too busy counting money to notice him earlier. Something about this didn't feel right. Keanu crouched down a few feet away, lowering his voice to a soft, calming tone. "Hey there," he said gently, careful not to startle her. "Are you okay? Where's your family?" The little girl turned slowly, her wide eyes locking onto his. She didn't answer. Didn't move. Just stared at him, watching, waiting, deciding if he was someone she could trust. A vibration in Keanu's pocket broke the tense silence. His phone. He grabbed it instinctively, only to feel his stomach drop as the screen flickered and went black. His battery was dead. No more calls. No roadside assistance. Now, he had a choice. Leave the girl, just for a moment, to grab a charger and call for help? Or stay with her, risking his own stranded situation, to make sure she wasn't left alone another second longer? Keanu exhaled, his decision already made. "I'll be right back," he promised, his voice steady but heavy with reluctance. "Stay right here, okay? I'm going to find someone to help you." The girl blinked but gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Keanu turned, his pulse racing as he hurried toward the center of the store. His eyes swept the aisles until finally, he spotted someone, a young employee kneeling near a shelf, restocking inventory. "Excuse me," Keanu called out, his voice firm but urgent. The worker glanced up, startled, before quickly standing. "There's a little girl alone in the personal care section," Keanu said without hesitation. "She's wearing just a tank top and underwear. No parents. No one around. She needs help." The worker's brow furrowed, his expression shifting into something between concern and recognition. He muttered something under his breath, something that made Keanu's skin prickle. That little. What did he know? And what was really going on here? Keanu wasn't leaving until he found out. Watch until the end, because what happens next will shock you. Keanu Reeves noticed a little girl alone in Walmart, what he discovered left him speechless. Keanu Reeves' expression hardened. "Thief again," he repeated, his voice edged with suspicion. "What do you mean by that?" The young store worker, Mark, visibly tensed, suddenly realizing who he was talking to. His jaw slackened, eyes widening with recognition. "Wait, are you, oh my God, you're Keanu Reeves," he stammered, his hands frozen mid-task. Keanu, unfazed, kept his tone firm. "Yes. But right now, I'm more concerned about that little girl. Can you help her?" Mark snapped out of his daze, quickly straightening up. "Yes, of course, Mr. Reeves. I'll handle it right away. We've seen her around here before." Keanu's frown deepened. "Seen her before," he repeated, his patience thinning. "Hasn't anyone done anything to help her?" Mark shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. "She comes and goes. We've tried asking her questions, but she always runs off before we can figure anything out." Keanu clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath his usual calm demeanor. "I need to find a power bank, urgently," he said, inhaling sharply. "Can you promise me you'll take care of her?" Mark nodded quickly, his earlier awkwardness replaced with determination. "Absolutely, Mr. Reeves. I'll make sure she's okay." Keanu exhaled, giving one last glance toward the girl before turning away, his steps brisk toward the electronics section. His mind, however, remained divided, half focused on finding a charger, the other half still stuck on the eerie silence of that child, standing alone under the fluorescent glow. He found the power bank quickly, snatching it off the display and making his way back to the register. As he approached, his eyes flicked instinctively back toward the personal care aisle. Mark was still there, crouching down to speak with the girl, his voice low and gentle. Keanu felt a flicker of relief. At the front counter, the cashier, Maria, finally acknowledged him, scanning the power bank. "That'll be $29.99, she said, her tone still detached, still professional. But then, as she raised her gaze to meet his, her entire expression transformed. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. "Oh my God." Her hand flew to her mouth. "You're Keanu Reeves." Keanu offered a small, understanding smile. "I am," he confirmed with a light nod. Maria flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry I didn't recognize you earlier. I've been on my feet for hours, and I was just so focused on closing up," she cut herself off, shaking her head. "I can't believe this." Keanu chuckled softly. "No need to apologize. Long shifts can be exhausting." Maria hesitated before speaking again, her excitement barely contained. "Would it be okay if I got a photo with you? I promise I won't post it or anything, it would just be for me." Keanu started to nod, but then, something in the corner of his eye made him stop. The girl. She was no longer in the personal care aisle. His stomach tensed. At first, relief flickered through him. Mark must have taken her somewhere safe. But as Keanu's gaze scanned further down the store, past the aisles of towering shelves, he saw her again. She was alone. Now standing in the baby care section. His chest tightened. Where was Mark? Why was she by herself again? And then he saw what she was doing. The girl moved with quiet precision, her small hands reaching up toward the shelves, clutching at the edges of 2 packs of diapers. She tugged, her tiny fingers grasping with practiced effort, until the packs tumbled to the ground with a soft thud. There was no hesitation. No fumbling. No confusion. She had done this before. Keanu's breath caught in his throat. Maria, still beside him, was positioning herself for their selfie, oblivious to his distraction. Keanu forced himself to refocus, nodding. Of course. Just a quick one, though. The camera flashed. Keanu smiled for the photo, but in the back of his mind, an unsettling realization was already settling in. This wasn't just a lost child. This was something else. And he was about to find out exactly what. Stay tuned, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Keanu Reeves watched a little girl struggle to buy diapers. What happened next left him stunned. There was something deeply unsettling about the scene. The girl's isolation. Her quiet determination. The eerie absence of Mark, who had promised to help her. For a moment, Keanu simply stood there, torn between confronting the situation and completing his purchase. "Sir?" Maria's voice pulled him back to the moment. She was still at the register, waiting. "How would you like to pay?" Keanu blinked, snapping out of his thoughts. "Oh, sorry about that," he said with a small smile, regaining his composure. "Card." As the transaction processed, a small sense of relief washed over him. He grabbed the power bank, plugging it into his phone immediately. The green charging symbol flickered onto the screen. One problem solved. But the other, the little girl, remained a mystery that gnawed at him. And then, to his surprise, she approached the counter. The girl shuffled forward, clutching 2 packs of diapers tightly in her small hands. She avoided everyone's gaze, staring down at the floor as she stepped up to the register. When she reached the counter, she hesitated, then, with slow, careful movements, she pulled a crumpled dollar bill from the waistband of her underwear. Keanu's chest tightened. The bill was old, wrinkled, like it had been hidden there for a long time. Maria's expression softened, but her voice remained gentle yet firm. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "this isn't enough. You need at least $5 more." The girl's grip tightened around the bill. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but she didn't. Her small frame seemed to shrink under the weight of Maria's words, confusion and quiet desperation flickering in her eyes. Keanu felt a slow frustration rise in his chest. This was wrong. She was too young to be here alone, too young to be dealing with this kind of struggle. Without a second thought, he stepped forward. "Maria," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "I'll cover the difference." Maria looked up, startled. "Mr. Reeves, are you sure?" Keanu nodded, his gaze never leaving the girl. "Yes. I'm sure." The child finally looked up at him, her wide eyes filled with something unspoken. Uncertainty. Fear. Maybe even gratitude. Keanu pulled out his wallet and handed Maria the cash. As the register beeped and the transaction completed, Maria handed the diapers to the girl, who took them with a hesitant grip. Keanu crouched slightly, lowering his voice to something soft, reassuring. "There you go," he said. "It's all taken care of." The girl hesitated, her fingers curling tightly around the plastic packaging. Then, finally, she spoke. "Thank you, sir." Keanu gave her a small, warm smile. "Don't mention it." But even as he tried to reassure her, a question lingered in his mind. Where was Mark? He turned back to Maria. "Where's that staff member, Mark? Last time I saw him, he was with this little girl." Maria's expression faltered, her enthusiasm dimming slightly. She clearly didn't want to get involved. "I'm not sure," she admitted, hesitating. "He might be finishing stock in one of the aisles, or in the back storage room." Keanu wasn't convinced. "Mark mentioned this girl has been here before. Do you know anything about that?" Maria shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. A long silence stretched between them before she finally reached for the intercom. "Mark to the front counter, please." Mark to the front counter. Within moments, Mark appeared. His expression was a mix of confusion and nervousness. Keanu turned to him, his usual calm demeanor tinged with frustration. "Mark," he began, his voice low but intense. "Why did you leave the girl alone after promising to help her? Do you realize the potential dangers of an unaccompanied minor in the store?" Mark's eyes darted between Keanu and Maria, his discomfort evident. Well, you see, Mr. Reeves," he stammered. "We've had issues with her before." Keanu's expression darkened. "Issues?" he repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Mark exhaled sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. She comes in, takes things, we can't really do much about it. It's not really our responsibility to find her parents or anything. Keanu's patience wore thin. Not your responsibility, he repeated, his voice sharp. If you can't locate her parents, it's your duty to contact the authorities. This child could be in danger. Mark shifted his weight uncomfortably. Look, it's late, and we're about to close. I still have stock to finish. We can't get involved every time some kid wanders in here. Keanu opened his mouth to respond, but movement caught his eye. The girl. She was slipping away. Without a word to Mark or Maria, Keanu turned on his heel and hurried after her. She was fast. Far faster than he expected. Her small frame weaved through the aisles with a practiced agility, her grip still tight around the diapers as she made a beeline for the exit. Keanu quickened his pace, his pulse racing. Wait, he called out, his voice laced with concern. The automatic doors slid open as she rushed through them, disappearing into the parking lot. Keanu pushed forward, stepping outside just in time to see her dart toward the darkened streets beyond the store. Then, his newly charged phone buzzed in his pocket. For a brief second, he hesitated. Who was calling him? And more importantly, could he afford to take his eyes off the girl, even for a moment? What Keanu did next would change everything. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Keanu Reeves followed a young girl home. What he discovered left him shaken. Keanu's phone buzzed in his pocket, the repair technician's number flashing across the screen. He hesitated for a brief second, his eyes still locked on the small figure ahead of him. The girl had stopped to pick up a fallen pack of diapers, clutching it tightly against her chest before continuing toward the parking lot. Keanu exhaled sharply and answered the call. Hello, he said, slightly out of breath. The technician's voice came through, frustrated but still professional. Mr. Reeves, where are you? I've located your car, but I haven't seen you yet. I've been waiting for a while. Keanu's gaze remained fixed on the girl as she stepped under the dim glow of a streetlight, her tiny frame almost disappearing into the vast night. I'm really sorry, he said quickly. There was an emergency. I promise I'll be there in 10 minutes. Please, can you wait? The technician let out a grunt of annoyance, clearly running out of patience. Fine. But don't take too long. Keanu ended the call, his mind racing. His car could be fixed. He could still make it to the set on time. But the little girl in front of him, her situation was far more urgent. He knew what he had to do. Keanu quickened his pace, catching up to her. Hey, he called out gently. We haven't had the chance to properly introduce ourselves. My name is Keanu. What's yours? The girl looked up at him with wary but curious eyes. Lila, she said softly. Keanu smiled warmly. That's a beautiful name, Lila. Listen, it's not safe for you to be out here alone. Would it be okay if I walked you home? Lila hesitated, then gave a small nod. As they walked, Keanu tried to make conversation. Do you live far from here? She shook her head and pointed across the street, toward a neighborhood that was visibly run down. Keanu's concern deepened as he took in the crumbling buildings and dimly lit streets. The silence between them felt heavy, but Keanu pushed forward. You know, he said carefully, I have a car. It's broken right now, but there's a repairman fixing it. Would you like to wait with me? Then I could drive you home. It might be safer than walking. Lila's response was immediate and firm. No, she said, her voice small but certain. Mommy says never go in a stranger's car. Keanu nodded, respecting her caution even as his worry grew. That's very smart of you, Lila. Your mom is right about that. Okay, we'll walk then. Is that all right? She nodded again, and they continued in silence. Keanu kept a watchful eye on their surroundings as the streets grew darker, more desolate. The further they walked, The worse the neighborhood became: boarded up windows, overflowing trash bins, houses in various states of decay. Finally, Lila came to a stop. She pointed to a house barely standing under the flickering glow of a street lamp. "My home," she said simply. Keanu hesitated, his concern deepening as he took in the peeling paint, cracked windows, and overgrown yard. The house barely looked livable. Before he could say anything, Lila turned to him. "You go now." Keanu's jaw tightened. He couldn't just leave. But before he could respond, his phone rang again, the repair technician. He answered quickly. "Mr. Reeves," the man said, clearly exasperated. "It's been over 10 minutes. I can't wait all night." Keanu ran a hand through his hair, the weight of conflicting responsibilities pressing down on him. "I understand," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm dealing with an urgent situation. If you could just give me a little more time." "Time is money," the technician interrupted. "I've got other calls to attend to." Keanu made a snap decision. "I'll pay extra. Double your usual rate. Triple, even. Just please, give me a bit more time." A pause. Then a reluctant sigh. "Fine," the technician grumbled. "But make it quick. I won't wait all night, no matter how much you're paying." The call ended, but Keanu barely registered it. His focus was back on the house. He stood there, debating his next move. Should he knock on the door, try to speak with Lila's parents? Would they even listen? Or was he overstepping? His internal struggle was cut short when the front door creaked open. Lila had disappeared inside. And then, just as quickly, she reemerged. Keanu froze. She was carrying a plastic bag. Even from a distance, he could tell it smelled. A distinct, unpleasant odor. Keanu watched in stunned silence as the little girl, with practiced efficiency, walked over to a garbage bin and tossed the bag inside. It was full of used diapers. His chest tightened. She was taking out the trash. A child, barely older than 4 or 5, carrying out responsibilities that no child should bear. She was still clad only in her underwear and tank top, her tiny frame standing against the night like a stark contrast between innocence and survival. The sight left him shaken. And in that moment, Keanu knew. He couldn't walk away. He had to find out the truth. He took a deep breath, then called out softly, "Lila." She turned, her expression unreadable. Keanu's voice was calm, gentle, but unwavering. "I'd like to speak with your parents. Is that okay?" What happened next would change everything. Stay tuned, because the truth behind this little girl's life is more heartbreaking than you can imagine. Keanu Reeves' unexpected encounter led to a life-changing decision. While trying to help a young girl named Lila get home safely, Keanu Reeves discovered a heartbreaking truth. She had no parents present, and she was caring for her baby brother, June, all alone. Determined to help, Keanu convinced Lila to let him inside their home. The house was in complete disarray, filled with neglect, and the children had been surviving on what little food they could find. Lila revealed that their mother would leave for days at a time, sometimes bringing strangers home, but never staying. Realizing the severity of the situation, Keanu promised to return with food. After briefly leaving to fix his car, he rushed back with supplies, only to find the atmosphere of the house had changed. A woman, Lila's mother, answered the door, clearly intoxicated and aggressive. When Keanu tried to check on the children, a man in the house casually mentioned physically abusing them to keep them quiet. Keanu immediately called the police, leading to a tense standoff. As officers arrived and arrested the mother and her companion, Lila and June were taken into protective custody. Despite the trauma, Lila still pleaded for her mother, breaking Keanu's heart. At the police station, Keanu assured the children they were not alone. Realizing he couldn't just walk away, he postponed his filming commitments to ensure Lila and June would be safe. The encounter had started as a chance meeting, but it became a turning point. Keanu knew he had to do more than just offer temporary help. He had to fight for these children's future. This was more than just one night. It was the beginning of something much bigger.